Hey everybody, Josh Searson of World Alternative Media here with some breaking news after a 7.7 magnitude earthquake hit between Cuba and Jamaica, where there is a tsunami threat. Now, the tsunami threat isn't massive at the moment, where they're thinking 1 to 3 feet above sea level or a tide level is possible in many of these places. But I wanted to go live about this because we have many viewers in the region, and it does affect the Cayman Islands dramatically. Make sure to press like on this video if you're just joining us. People in Florida felt the massive earthquake. There have been an alarming amount of natural catastrophes in the past few weeks even. And a lot of people are questioning, is something really starting to happen in the Earth's crust? There's earthquakes not that far from New York City even, and many going through the Ridgecrest region. They've been nonstop around California. And for those just tuning in, this is breaking news. I see one person wrote, what magnitude is this? It's a 7.7. So it's very similar to an earthquake I felt not that long ago in Acapulco, Mexico, which was absolutely enormous and knocked people to the ground. So obviously it's quite a large earthquake. We're going to go to some news stories right away here as I load them up on the screen for everyone. And I'll turn it on here. All right. As it says, breaking tsunami possible following major earthquake near Jamaica and Cuba. And as it says in this article here, a powerful earthquake struck the Caribbean on Tuesday afternoon, shaking parts of Jamaica and Cuba shortly after 2 p.m. local time. The earthquake was originally rated a 7.3 by the USGS, but was later upgraded to a 7.7. The epicenter of the earthquake was 78 miles, 125 kilometers northwest of Lucia, Jamaica, and was shallow with a depth of 6.2 miles, 10 kilometers. Tsunami waves as high as 1 meter are possible along some coasts of Belize, Cuba, Honduras, Mexico, Jamaica, and the Cayman Islands, according to the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. And right as we went live here, the concern over the tsunami has been somewhat downgraded. It says tsunami threat forecast updated. The tsunami threat has now largely passed, but they're still expecting potential riptides and large waves on the shoreline in the region that could seriously affect a lot of people's safety. So I wanted to make that clear. So the threat has changed right as we went live, but with that said, it was a massive magnitude earthquake, 7.7 off of Cuba. The screen that's up here isn't for the one that we were just talking about here. But again, as this article continues, it says shaking was felt as far away as Miami, Florida, and reports began surfacing on social media that high-rise buildings were felt swaying. Twitter users posted video footage on the platform showing people streaming out of office buildings in Miami as helicopters buzzed overhead. And we can see, I guess, this video here, if it'll play. We'll get that up on the screen here. And you can see people reacting. Now, for those that are just tuning in, there was a massive 7.7 earthquake that had caused severe damage around the region of Cuba. Obviously, we don't know the extent of the damage due to the fact that it's Cuba, and there's not a great connection to the outside world coming from a lot of the rural communities in Cuba. With that said, this had caused a huge warning regarding tsunamis. And look, a lot of people are still shell-shocked from 2011 and the Japanese tsunami that many of us witnessed live on TV that killed ridiculous amounts of people and caused a ridiculous amount of damage. And I think this mostly is causing a lot of people to consider a lot of things recently with all the earthquakes, volcanoes, etc. that's going off. It seems like there's a heightened level of volcanoes and earthquakes in the last short while. So I wanted to go live and talk to some people about this, as the tsunami threat was largely downgraded as we went live. Literally a moment after we went live, it went from brace for massive tsunami to the tsunami threat is largely past. But with that said, the earthquake has affected a lot of people, and we've seen a lot coming out of Puerto Rico in the last couple of weeks, where there's been one disaster after another hitting Puerto Rico, of course, and in the Bahamas in general. And a lot of people were on the street, homeless, because of the recent earthquakes, one after another, after another, after another. And that led to a lot of people asking, well, where's the disaster relief? And there was a huge controversy in Puerto Rico as people have resigned in politics, etc., because they found out that there is a huge amount of goods that were hidden in a warehouse and not distributed to people, which, is not that shocking. But with this said, I mean, with what we saw recently in Australia with the massive wildfires, a lot of people have been talking about, the government's reaction to disaster relief, which is always terrible. And, people have been stranded in communities in Australia where the fires happened, where they're homeless and not allowed to use RVs due to some crazy regulation. And only, I think, 95% of Red Cross donations never made it to people out there. I mean, it's totally disgusting and horrible, and we have to really be asking ourselves, what are we doing about it? Some people are talking about crustal displacement. So there has been a lot of theories going back, as far as I know, from the 80s and onward that have been really big. There are some people before that, but largely since the 80s and 90s, Graham Hancock talked about a crustal displacement theory and the notion, I should say, sorry, of places like Serbia having once been in a tropical area, as well as Antarctica, where palm trees were found fossilized, and then the land was moved and manipulated at the same time as there was massive magnetic pole shifts. And a lot of people are saying that we are entering into a new generation or age of not just crustal displacement, but the poles shifting, massive issues regarding the magnetosphere of the Earth, and also we have to talk about massive earthquakes happening seemingly every 2 days. I mean, I don't remember this many earthquakes. I could be wrong, but I don't recall earthquakes happening at such a vast rate. And if you look back at history and the way that civilizations have been wiped out in the past due to massive floods, earthquakes, and destruction, volcanoes, etc. It should be something we shouldn't be scared of it. Fear pushes people into subservience. We should be. We should be seriously concerned, though, and we should be taking precautions, and people aren't ready in most cases. It's insane how few people are willing to be prepared. It's better to be overly prepared than underprepared, as I always say. Now, I want to see what the death toll is from this earthquake, so I'm looking into this as we speak here. Cuba earthquake. For those just tuning in, there was a 7.7 magnitude earthquake just off of the coast of Cuba, underwater near Jamaica, and there were huge power failures in even parts of Florida, shaking of Miami buildings, and it was a powerful earthquake. A lot of concern about the Cayman Islands, and I'm trying to find a death toll and what has actually happened in Cuba, but most of it is regarding news of the tsunami, which has now the threat has subsided. Right after we went live, the threat subsided. We are getting photos and videos I'm seeing coming out of Miami. If this will load for me here, and I'll get it on the screen as soon as I possibly can. The tsunami threat isn't as large as it was when, even 10 minutes ago. But with that said, the earthquake has caused a lot of damage in the region, and I want to get into as much of that as possible and break it down as best as I can. We got news here coming out of Florida, as it says. Buildings in Miami were evacuated after vibrations from a powerful earthquake that struck between Cuba and Jamaica Tuesday afternoon were felt throughout South Florida. The 7.7 magnitude earthquake was reported about 77 miles north-northwest of Jamaica, Lucia, I should say, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. There were no immediate reports of injuries or damage, but we do have people tuning in saying that there was some serious casualties coming out of Cuba. For those saying my camera is shaky, yeah, I'm stuck on my phone because my laptop crashed and I can't get a new one. So make sure to check those links below. Press like on the video, donate any way you can, pledge, all that kind of stuff, and it'll help us get our equipment back up to shape. But this is independent media after all, so we'll do the best we can here. As it says, Miami-Dade police reported receiving phone calls of buildings shaking, and chopper footage showed multiple buildings were being evacuated. Now, Miami-Dade Fire Rescue responded to reports of tremors felt at high-rise structures on Dadeland Boulevard, officials said. City of Miami police said there were reports of vibrations in downtown Brickell where some buildings were evacuated. There were no injuries or damage as reported by police. But with that said, there's news that there were casualties in Cuba, and it's really hard to find information on that at the immediate moment here. Let me see what I can get here. Let's see. I am not seeing any information on casualties out of Cuba. We're going to try and break the latest news as fast as we can here. I'm trying to get a few different articles up. This article here says, earthquake triggers tsunami warning for Cuba, Jamaica, and Cayman. 7.7 magnitude quake struck in the sea south of Cuba. No immediate reports of damage or injuries. And there has been an absolutely terrible response to a lot of these massive catastrophes that we've seen in the last year. I mean, the amount, for example, I mean, this isn't new. We saw what happened in Japan with the tsunami, when the tsunami hit, all the just amazing amounts of people killed. And the destruction path was, I don't think anyone has ever gone without seeing some of the videos of the tsunami hitting Japan. Obviously, there was the one in Thailand before that, and we've seen the destruction that even things like Hurricane Katrina caused. The people on the ground helping other people save so many lives, and then were restricted by governments, including our friend Danny Sessom, who was there during Harvey in Houston trying to help people on the ground, and FEMA was stopping him and trying to restrict him from helping people while forcing people into lineups that took hours and people were dying. It was just absolutely crazy. And during Hurricane Katrina, obviously, there's a lot of corruption. There was cannibals running around the streets. The FEMA was stopping people again from helping. Countless people were getting murdered, and stores robbed, and police were busy confiscating guns and crazy stuff like that. Then recently in Puerto Rico, there was a similar situation where politicians were using it as a reason to politic while people were suffering. People were restricted from helping people again. And then on top of that, people were, the people that were able to get goods and services out to Puerto Rico, all of it was kept in a warehouse. We've been vindicated. We were talking about it at the time, and now it's been about a year, and information has come out that showed that we were right, and people were rioting in the streets and trying to break into these warehouses when they found out after these recent earthquakes in Puerto Rico that all of these goods were kept from the people that needed it the most. And we saw recent stuff out of Australia with the bushfires, where people were locked into communities where they lost their homes. They weren't allowed to use RVs because of stupid regulations, and 95% of Red Cross donations were kept, and only 5% were actually delivered to people. Anyway, as for the trolls in here, whatever, don't worry about it, guys. Let's focus on the situation here and what we can do. Though the tsunami warning has been downgraded, there's still a warning, but it's not of immediate danger. But the earthquake that hit was really large, and there's very little info. Obviously, on rural communities in Cuba, it's hard to find a lot of good information for obvious reasons. Anyway, one person wrote here, Vention MGTOW says, no doubt I never donate to established charities anymore. Yeah, I mean, you can't trust any of these charities. We know the history of a lot of these charities, basically embezzling money and not actually bringing it to the victims. I'm trying to get the latest news up here, but as per usual, the mainstream's tardy as hell, and we're trying to get information from people on the ground. And the best way to do that, unfortunately, right now is through Twitter and getting the latest from Twitter. People are saying earthquakes are typical at this time of month. Yeah, but it's a pretty large one. It could cause a lot of deaths and a lot of destruction. So I want to make sure that we got all the information we got. Oh, we got video coming out here. All right, let's go right here to the video footage showing what appears to be a classroom getting hit. You could see the desks kind of swaying. Anyway, so for those just tuning in, there was a massive earthquake, a 7.7 just off the coast of Cuba by Jamaica, and this is breaking. Now the tsunami threat has been downgraded, but it doesn't change the fact that there's very likely a lot of damage and possibly casualties, and there's very little information coming out. Vention MGTOW says, sent $10 in the super chat. Thank you very much. It says, thanks for reading my comment. My pleasure as always, and really appreciate those super chats. It's only the only thing keeping independent media alive at this point, as we are totally shadow banned and demonetized. Desas Doug Saska, I swear I can't read her name. It's crazy. Says, I'm from Turkey. Can you slow speak, please? Of course, and to you, Kesh Kular, for tuning in. We are reporting on breaking news out of Cuba, where there was a 7.7 magnitude earthquake, and this has led to concerns of a tsunami, though the tsunami risk has been downgraded. We are mostly concerned with how the disaster relief programs are going to work, because we end up having these stories popping up every few weeks where it turns out that the government, the FEMA, organizations are not helping people and are not providing the help that they promise, while people are donating. The donations never get received. Anyways, the tsunami risk has been downgraded, but I think a lot of people are really concerned about how many of these earthquakes and volcanoes and natural catastrophes have been hitting us. I see lots of trolls here. Okay, I get it. Speak in 0.25 speed, please. Slow-mo. All right. But anyway, there are a lot of concerns, because we've been seeing one catastrophe after another lately, and it can only, a lot of people, maybe this has been happening for a long time, but a lot of people are concerned that we are actually witnessing something of a greater of a greater importance happening worldwide, some kind of reset, a natural reset. There have been an alarming amount of earthquakes lately, an alarming amount of volcanoes, an alarming amount of floods, and we are seeing landslides, and then at the same time we're seeing plagues break out like we see every year. We've been reporting on the coronavirus. There's more to the story, but we are obviously seeing a heightened level of instability lately. Potential war with Iran. And then everyone's distracted by what Ariana Grande won at the Grammys. It's really sad. But anyway, a couple months ago there was 7.5 magnitude, I believe, in Ridgecrest, California, which I felt in Las Vegas. It was pretty large. But I mean, I remember most people don't know what to do in the case of these earthquakes or tsunami warnings. When I was in Acapulco, Mexico in 2018, I was about to speak with Dr. Ron Paul, and I was standing outside of the event hall at Anarchapulco, and suddenly a massive earthquake hit. Everyone thought they were drunk. People were like wobbling around, and they were going, "What's going on?" And people started tipping over, and people were suddenly crying and climbing on the ground, clawing at the ground. And there's a stampede of people pushing everyone out of the way, and they all started running toward the beach. Richard Jones says, how do I donate? There's lots of links below, and there's a super chat as well, which also helps. But there's GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribestar, etc. Float, flote.app, which everyone should join. But yeah, I think the best way is GoFundMe and Subscribestar personally. But I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. There's also crypto addresses below if you want to do that as well. But anyway, so there's this massive earthquake, and everyone started running towards the beach, and everyone was running towards the water. I'm thinking, there's a very good chance that there is a tsunami after this. Maybe you should be looking for a higher structure. The hotel we were in is built like a giant pyramid. It's a place where Howard Hughes died years ago. And people all started running towards the water instead of into the giant pyramid that has survived countless major earthquakes. Obviously, there was a major earthquake in Mexico City last year as well. And if you've been to the airport since, it is not very nice. It's pretty wrecked. The cracks in the floor and the ceiling are noticeable. Our friend from Turkey here wrote, "These may be harbingers of major earthquakes," and yeah, absolutely. There was a massive earthquake that hit near Şanlıurfa in Turkey, I believe about a week or two ago, and it was felt all throughout the whole region. It was a very serious earthquake, and obviously, I love Turkey. I was just there. It's one of the most historic places in the world. It's a very important place, and it pains me to see not only the attempt to destabilize the region happening there, but on top of that, massive earthquakes that could very well destroy a lot of these ancient sites that have been dug up in recent years. Stig Martin says, earthquake 3.0 magnitude in Teesside, UK. This is unusual and not somewhere that gets earthquakes. There have been a large amount of earthquakes in the last 2 years, especially in strange places, including by New York, in New York State. Very unusual to see that around South Carolina as well, by Florida, and it's much more common to see them, obviously, on the West Coast. Ridgecrest, California, it's expected to be like 5 earthquakes a day, usually small, but sometimes massive. And we've seen massive earthquakes in that region in recent years, especially in the last year. There's a huge one, I believe, in June. But yeah, there are a lot. We saw one in China not that long ago. There was one in Iran not long ago. All while all this instability was happening, it's absolutely crazy. Hera Sura says, "Can it be the result of global warming?" Well, certainly not. I mean, to blame earthquakes on man-made climate change. The point not one statistic that came out of many peer-reviewed studies regarding man's effect on the climate, first of all, hardly can change the temperature of the ocean after a long period of time. It's more a concern to pollution and lung health and personal health. But with that said, it's an earthquake. So I mean, the Earth is this massive stone magmatic thing that's just holding all this fusion together like an atom bomb, which it vents out every now and then. We get obviously earthquakes with the movement of the crust and the plates, and then you have massive volcanoes that have been going on forever. I mean, there's a time when the Earth was just constantly exploding volcanic magmatic lava everywhere, and it was just a constant thing. No thing could inhabit Earth. But obviously today we're living on a very volatile plane. So I want to note that for those that are just tuning in, make sure to press like on this video if you haven't already. It helps us with the algorithm. Sharing it on social media also helps. And sending super chats, donations, anything really helps keep independent media alive. Now, the breaking news is that there was a 7.7 magnitude earthquake that hit by Cuba, affecting Jamaica and even as far as Florida. Buildings in Miami were shaking, and obviously a lot of people were concerned about a massive tsunami. With that said, the tsunami risk has been downgraded so far. I am refreshing it as we go here and trying to find the latest. Obviously, the tsunami warning was shut down literally moments after we went live. So But we got posts on Twitter here, like this one here. It says, I guess I'll be the one to tell you all if the tsunami is coming. If I see the water go back, I'll tell you all to run. Yeah, well, and it's all fun and jokes until it happens. I mean, the tsunami in Japan, as well as the tsunami in Thailand years ago, people were just standing on the shorelines, like taking videos of themselves and selfies, and then they just got wiped out and killed. I mean, it's not good. We got an interesting image here that shows you can see my reflection here, but massive earthquakes happening all over the planet, all at the same time. You could see that the time ticker up there. I think you can anyway. Oh man, yeah, I'm stuck showing things on my screen with my phone because my laptop crashed about a week or so, or I mean a month or so ago, and I can't afford a new one, so I'm kind of stuck live streaming on my phone, unfortunately. But yeah, anyway, for those that are just tuning in, make sure to press like, check those links below. We got a Teespring store, all that kind of stuff. Help support independent media. Anyway, so there was a 7.7 magnitude earthquake that happened right by Cuba, below Cuba, south of Cuba, that affected Jamaica and the Caymans and Bahamas, and buildings were shaking in Miami. And this led to a massive tsunami warning. The tsunami warning was downgraded, and is not something of great concern now. It was downgraded right after we went live. But with that said, there is a lot of concern about all these constant earthquakes that we're seeing around the world right now. Bridget Abu Seifi says, smash that like button. Yeah, thank you very much. Make sure to hit like. But also, we are seeing these things popping up all over the world all the time. It's constant. There's a lot of concern regarding how many is actually happening. There's a lot of stuff happening at Yellowstone. So with that said, at Yellowstone, I mean, if it happens, it's going to happen eventually. It has to happen eventually. I'd rather be standing on the ground where it happens than be in the nuclear winter that it would cause. But with that said, the disaster relief is something that a lot of people are pointing out, as we saw recently with Australia. The bushfire victims were stranded in an area where their home burned down. They weren't allowed to live in RVs due to crazy regulations, which is so ridiculous. Government says they're there to help you. They never are. And they're only there to control you and enslave you. But then what happened was people all donated to the Red Cross. And oh my God, these troll comments. But people donated to the Red Cross. And what happened? Well, the Red Cross only gave 5% of the proceeds to the bushfire victims. It's very similar to what we saw in Puerto Rico recently with not just like the flooding and the hurricanes one after another, but also with the earthquakes that happened recently. The government kept all the proceeds, all these the water and survival gear and all that kind of stuff in a warehouse and didn't hand it to anyone so they can ask for more government handouts and more money. But it's just crazy because we saw similar things in New Orleans as well during Hurricane Katrina, and then afterwards we saw that happen. Last year there was lots of flooding in New Orleans, and as well as hurricane that hit that wasn't as massive as past ones, but we saw that as well as with Hurricane Harvey and Maria in Texas and Houston. I mean, Houston was underwater, which it's underwater a lot, but it was a massive flood that affected countless people, mostly poor neighborhoods, unfortunately. And then when people tried to help, victims of this massive natural catastrophe, they were turned away by FEMA. They weren't allowed to. They were threatened with arrest for trying to help people. And our friend Danny Sessom went over there and was trying to help people and was saving people from, their homes that were underwater and everything, and was trying to give necessities to people. And what happened? Well, this is what happened. People he tried to give these people things, and FEMA stood in front and said, no, you can't. So he had to go around to the back of the building and hand it out there, while FEMA was trying to stop him, and while the FEMA was putting people in long lineups in like a prison, a giant prison, and telling people to wait for 45 minutes in line to get a toothbrush, then wait in another lineup for 45 minutes to get a pillow. It's ridiculous, and it's a great way to spread diseases and stuff like that. The government isn't there to help you; it's there to under the guise of helping, when it's really there to enslave you and extort you and put you into servitude, as always, as we go into so often here at WHAM. So, and this happens all the time, all over the world. Remember the Haiti relief fund that Bill Clinton was heading? And then they just decided to give friends of theirs grants with the money, the donation money, to build soccer stadiums while people were dying in the streets from diseases, and the earthquake caused all these horrible things to happen there, and they weren't helping anyone. They were building soccer stadiums to give their friends a bunch of money. I'm sure people like playing soccer while their house is underwater. It's really, really sickening. So let's hope for the best for the people in Cuba. I'm trying to keep up to date here with what's happening in Cuba. There's very little coming out. Obviously, Cuba, I mean, outside of Havana and larger parts of touristy areas of Cuba, there is not a good way or metric to judge exactly what's happening in Cuba at this moment, because it's very, very much off the grid in many cases. Speaking of off the grid, remember what happened when Puerto Rico got hit so hard by that hurricane, and then later the earthquakes? Their power is out so much because they're utilizing a 1950s grid. It's crazy. I'm trying to find the latest, but it's so hard to find their latest news because Google has become terrible, and DuckDuckGo, it's all right, but I mean, it could be better. Let me see. I'm trying to get to you guys the most latest information here. Advanced search. Let's see. Doesn't let me go by time here. Man, it's terrible. Google is just so bad these days. But for those that are just tuning in, there have been a lot of earthquakes in recent days. There's a 7.7 today just by Cuba, near Jamaica, by the Bahamas, by the Caymans, and it was felt in Miami. Buildings were shaking in Miami. Since Google is so absolutely terrible at giving you the latest news, here's a video that just came out showing in the Caribbean water splashing out of a swimming pool. It's a pretty intense earthquake. Obviously, we aren't hearing a lot about death toll. We're not hearing a lot about damage to buildings. Some people are saying the latest data is now 7.9 magnitude, and that makes, they always upgrade it later on. Let me see. There's another video here. It's a really shaky video, but it seems to show the ground shaking and moving. All right, let's scroll down here to the latest. They updated an hour ago on most of these mainstream medias now. Tsunami map showing areas of Jamaica that could be impacted by waves in yellow, not exceeding 3 feet. So it's not huge, but they have retracted the tsunami warning in the region. So tsunami isn't of greatest concern. Right now it's finding out, are people all right on the ground, and who's affected, are buildings collapsing? As I said, if buildings were shaking in Miami, then suffice to say, it's probably affecting Cuba pretty dramatically right now. We're trying to find the latest, but there's very little information coming out. The tsunami warning was retracted, but there are still some concerns about massive riptide. So if anyone was in the water, they could get pulled out to sea. Daniel Lima 7 says, tsunami, real? I'm not sure how you mean, but they have retracted the tsunami warning as we were alive here. But there was a 7.7 magnitude earthquake. Some people are saying that it's been upgraded to 7.9, but I have not yet seen that. There is evidence of massive sinkholes forming. I mean, that's in Grand Cayman. Massive sinkholes forming. Obviously, really traumatic to people on the ground there because they've been through all this before, and this is affect. I mean, there's just seemingly every week there's something. Here we have more video of people at a pool in Jamaica, and the pool's overflowing and splashing all over the ground. Ramazan Murkan says, are they dead or injured? We are trying to find that out. There's literally no information coming out of these places on that. Some people are saying, like the latest articles from an hour ago said there weren't any injuries or deaths, but it's hard to say that because in Cuba and a lot of the rural communities, especially living in shanties and lots of that, in lots of Cuba, it's almost impossible to get good information on whether, I mean, especially if the videos or if the, sorry, I'm just distracted by the comments that are coming in, especially if a lot of the buildings are really badly built, easy to crumble and fall apart. And there's not a lot of great protocols in parts of Cuba. Remember, it's a very, 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 very leftist country that is not very efficient, to say the least. They have great education rates, but people are living on the streets, and it's absolutely tragic what people are going through in the rural communities of Cuba, which we have many people that we know. But this there's a lot of fake videos. This is from Japan. There's people claiming that this is from Jamaica. This is from Japan in 2011. It's famous videos of water breaking the banks after the tsunami hit in Japan back in 2011. So don't fall for the tricks. Obviously, this is why we went live, though, because if something like this were to happen in that region, it would be absolutely devastating. And, we would have to be sending our support out there and helping any way we can because we know how the government has treated people in that region or throughout the world, Bahamas, Puerto Rico, in even California and Australia and New Orleans and Houston, and in Cuba, of course, when disaster strikes. Anyway, Shadane Baker says, no, Jamaica can't be like that. I live in Jamaica. There would be water here. Yeah, like I said, that was the 2011 tsunami video from Japan, which people are sharing as Jamaica. Let's not fall for that. Loki Ilkivalta says, Epstein Island going to get washed up and all the evidence gone. Yeah, well, that already happened. Make sure to press like on this video if you haven't already. Get it up to 300 people watching. We got 295. Thank you for tuning in. For those just tuning in, there is breaking news out of Cuba. 7.7 magnitude earthquake struck. And there are no reports of casualties as of yet, but it's hard to find any information on what's actually happening out there. We got video of this swimming pool affected by the earthquake. The tsunami warning has been retracted as of now, but it's hard to tell how much damage there may have been in the region because obviously much of it is off the grid. And so, thoughts and prayers to everyone out there, but also we should try to contact anyone we might know, Facebook, YouTube, elsewhere, that we know in that region. And for those that are joining us that are in Jamaica, we have a few people from Jamaica. Did you feel the earthquake? Can you tell us a little bit about what happened so we have that information? Because the information right now is absolutely terrible online. Shadane Baker says that's a lie because that turned back on them. I'm not sure what you're saying there. Elizabeth Elvir says tsunami warning for Bay Islands, Honduras. The tsunami warning has just been retracted. As Klaus Ebner says, no tsunami. The plate didn't drop. It was a side-to-side quake. So the warnings have been retracted. With that said, there is a lot of instability in the region. More aftershocks could be hitting very soon. And with that said, structural damage could be reported, which could affect a lot of people and endanger a lot of people. Off the beaten path says fake news, no tsunami. Well, if you actually listen to the video instead of listening to your own voice talking, you'd hear us going into all of that. But I don't expect trolls to actually listen. Yusuf the Greek says, "Hi Josh, will be a pole shift that triggers crust displacement very soon. Move from seashore and high up." Well, we've seen massive floods in the past. I mean, it wiped out civilization for many, many years. Again, for those just joining us, there was a massive earthquake. This video is from Japan, from not from Jamaica, as has been advertised. People are trying to make the best of tragedies, and it's very sad. We have all these messages coming in from the Tsunami Center, the U.S. Tsunami Center within the government. The tsunami risks have been downgraded, so we are not looking at anything like that hitting anytime soon. But with that said, there was a massive earthquake, a 7.7 magnitude that hit just off the coast of Cuba that's affecting Jamaica. Buildings shook in Miami. We are seeing potential damage that could be coming out of places in the Bahamas. And we are trying to find the best information we can here, the latest information, which there isn't a lot of reliable information out there right now. Make sure to press like on this video if you haven't already. I really appreciate everyone joining us right now, and check those links below because we have many ways to keep independent media alive. Super chats help, GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribe Star, Teespring, float.app, flote.app. That's flote.app. The future of social media, replacing Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, and Patreon, all in one with encrypted messaging. You have monetization on videos for incentive for medias and creators, of course. And then you've got super chats on their live streams in cryptocurrency and pledges, and no algorithm telling you what you can or cannot see. Anyway, for those that are just tuning in, one has to question why so many natural catastrophes are happening at the same time. And I think a lot of people are starting to get a little bit more concerned about, the fate of the world right now. I mean, it's nothing more important than that, is there? The fate of the world. Why are so many natural catastrophes happening at the first time? Or at the same time? Damn right, Force says, looks like you're the first to report on this. Well, I mean, there are some media is reporting on it, but the tsunami risk was downgraded right as we signed in here and started reporting live. So the title, I can't change it once I'm live, so there's nothing I can do about that. But nonetheless, it was a massive risk, and they were warning of 3 to 5 feet high above sea wave level waves hitting mainland or not mainland, sorry, the island of Cuba, Japan, or Jamaica, and the Bahamas, and throughout the Cayman Islands. And that is something that we need to be reporting on, because that's where our time is to shine, to help and try to send our not just condolences but our support to people. Erdem Sahin says, we cannot sleep at Turkey. Yes, there have been massive earthquakes hitting Turkey around the Şanlıurfa region lately. That's affecting a lot of people, and we are really concerned about that. Obviously, it's been affecting a lot of ancient sites. This is crazy video. I'm not sure. Is this real? Let's find out. This is apparently effects of 7.7 earthquake. Terremoto, Temblor, Sismo near Cayman Islands, Cayman, Temblor, PR. So the tsunami alert is no longer in effect. But is that like a giant aquarium or a giant water retaining system that's overflowing? Because that's pretty crazy. Yeah, I have not seen that video so far. We got to be careful about the videos being shared, because a lot of past catastrophe videos are being shared in order to get in on the trend. And it's unfortunate that people are using possible tragedies in order to get clicks. Fets on Twitter says, disease, earthquake, tsunami, it's been a long day. Yeah, it seems like everything is happening at the same time right now, isn't it? It's absolutely crazy. You got video there of the earthquake being felt in Jamaica as the swimming pool splashes around. Let's see, we got a bunch of posts in another language that I can't read. All right. PTWC says the tsunami threat has largely passed. Says this will be its final tsunami threat message. Tsunami threat forecast updated. The tsunami threat is now largely passed, which is definitely good news to hear. So yeah, at the same time as earthquakes, volcanoes, tension coming out of Yellowstone National Park, which no one wants to hear. Klaus Ebner says Haiti earthquake happened 10 years ago, almost to the day. Yeah, it's crazy. And then Clinton embezzled a bunch of the money through the Clinton Foundation and passed it on to friends to build soccer stadiums while people were dying in the streets. Can't forget what Bill Clinton and the Clinton Foundation did out there. But also, so we have all these diseases that are spreading. One thing I wanted to note that I haven't noted in a video was last night, I'm in Las Vegas, and that's where I am. That's where I spend most of my time. I went to the Bellagio. I just happened to be walking through the Bellagio, and there was a massive, it's one of the most, highly concentrated on tourist areas of the world, in the world. Just a ridiculous amounts of people go there every year. It's the most revisited tourist site in the world. And I'm walking around there, and they're having the Chinese New Year events, and there were thousands and thousands and thousands of Chinese nationals walking around the Bellagio, shipped in from China to go to this event where it was canceled in China, in much of China, for the coronavirus, and yet there's thousands of Chinese nationals walking around the Bellagio hotel, and so many of them were coughing. And I know the chances of catching something from Chinese people or anyone in general, as far as the coronavirus goes, is so minimal and tiny, but it still doesn't seem like the brightest idea for there to be such a boom. And I mean, there's always Chinese tourism around the world. It's the biggest tourism industry in the world, like worldwide. But with that said, there's more people traveling right now out of China than any other time of the year. Rothy says fake news. Well, if you listen to the video, you wouldn't be saying that, because as we reported live, the tsunami warning was happening when we went live, and then after we went live, they retracted the tsunami threat. So I can't change my title in the middle of a video. So you can take that fake news comment and shove it. But anyway, it just seems like plague from plague, and it seems manufactured. There's evidence that the Canadian government had the coronavirus strain that's going around the world right now, and China weaponized it at the same time as these earthquakes, floods, tsunami warning, well, hurricanes mostly, no tsunami right now, and also volcanoes. And you have Steve Jones says don't eat Panda Express. Well, I don't think that all comes from China, but Randall McMurphy says, win Bitcoin Moon. Well, if this crazy disaster stuff keeps up, then probably very soon. Well, the halving, May 16th of 2020, the halving's happening, and it'll cut the production down in half. So Steve Jones says, not true. Mike Adams says you can catch it by shaking hands. Gene Strong says, lol. What idiot troll is on here yelling fake news? Rothy was. Beer Zircadian says bat soup is bad, okay? Yeah. Tumble Trash says the toaster yells fake news. Yeah, there's a few people that just come online for 2 seconds, don't listen, say fake news, and sign out and feel real happy with themselves and with their life. Shinobi Wan says, you think the NCOV is fake, as in the novel coronavirus? No, I don't think it's fake. I think it's real. I just think that it's been, spread by the state in order to push people into further subservience. Why wouldn't they? There's evidence that the Chinese government has weaponized these diseases so many times in the past. Why wouldn't they do it today? I mean, it allows them to quarantine, possibly just disappear and kill a bunch of people. BRREEDDAA says, um, saw a video yesterday of Chinese nurse who said more than 90,000 people are infected in China. Yeah, it's absolutely terrible. Damn right forces fear porn. What is fear porn? I think that we need to have a culture of calm in these situations and figure out solutions rather than screaming at the top of our lungs and running for our lives. Erdem Sahin says at least 50 million people quarantined at the Wuhan. Yeah, well, it's a city of 11 million, but they're quarantining in many other places, and it's up to about 50 million now. The chances of catching are very small. The 2% death rate is minuscule compared to Ebola, which was 60 to 90%. So there's a lot of fear mongering being spread about it, but I think that it's good to be overly prepared rather than underprepared, which plays into the coronavirus, which plays into these earthquakes, possible tsunamis, hurricanes, all of that. And I think it's important that even if it is fear mongering by the media, which it most definitely probably is, as they do every year, almost at the same time every year, from Zika virus and H1N1, H2N9, SARS, all that kind of stuff, Ebola. I think it's still important to prepare, just not freak out and hide under your bed, because that's how you become a subservient slave of the state, as we see all too many times throughout history. Sanban says, prepare, absolutely. Make sure to press like on this video if you haven't already. I appreciate everyone watching today. Make sure to check those links below. We need your help. ET says, repent from your sins. Jesus Christ is coming. Make sure to press like and share the video on social media. It's the only thing that's helping us because we got 72% of all of our views from suggested videos in the past on YouTube. And today, we only get 1.2% of our views from that because YouTube has shadow banned us to death. Susan Wozicki said that she's cut down views on controversial content, quote unquote, by 70% since January last year. Sandban says they're talking more about Kobe than the coronavirus. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. And Ariana Grande winning Grammys. It's insane. But yeah, we're being insanely shadow banned. We're being demonetized. We've been demonetized 97%. So I've been forced to. I'm selling all of my possessions except for my clothes, computer, and cameras, and moving to the other side of the world on 150 to 350 a month rent in places like Greece and Cyprus, so that I could survive and keep making videos. It sucks. I don't want to do it. But with that said, it's necessary so that I can keep spreading content to the masses. Find us on BitChute, Minds, Float.app is my number one, flote.app. MP says, is this tsunami? The tsunami threat has now been retracted. There is no more immediate threat of tsunami, though there's a threat of many aftershocks, which could lead to something of that type. But don't swim in the water, I think goes without saying. And know what you're doing in cases of earthquakes. Don't run into structures. Don't run towards the water. Eric Harmon says, I have literally seen my wham shadow banned in real time. Josh is being honest about it. I have seen my likes removed in front of my face more than a few times. Yeah, and about 1,000 people a month are being unsubscribed automatically from us. And it's absolutely crazy. It's been really hard to keep it up. We've been almost staying level, but we're losing subscribers every month. We've been stuck at 136,000 subscribers for many, many, many months now. And it's just a catastrophe. Every month we make 50% of the last month as far as monetization goes. Stevie mentions that first case of coronavirus in BC. Yep, saw that earlier. Lots of this kind of stuff is happening. It's spreading. And we got to be careful, especially there's a lot of Chinese influence in British Columbia. There's no doubt about that. Ramazan Murkan says, can tsunami happen? Well, the Tsunami Center has retracted their the threat of tsunami. But with that said, people should be cautious and not go in the water. It was a 7.7 magnitude earthquake. It was pretty large, obviously. It's affected a lot of people around Cuba. It hit just below Cuba and affected Jamaica and the Caymans, and buildings in Miami were shaking. So obviously, for obvious reasons, people need to be cautious and be prepared. It's just all about being prepared. Freedom is responsibility. Responsibility is freedom. You can't have one without the other, and it's incredibly important that people are overly prepared rather than underprepared, both financially and physically, responsibly, self-sustainably. Wayne Peter says man controls the weather. Not all of it, but there is obviously HARP and stuff like that that's happening. There's no doubt about it. That's 100% apparent. Annette just sent $10 in the super chat. Thank you so much, Annette. That's awesome. That is exactly what we need right now too, because we are being killed by this shadow banning and demonetization. So that super chat is literally putting food on the table here at WAM, and it makes a massive difference. I can't tell you how important those super chat donations really are to us, as well as pressing like and sharing the videos. It all means a great deal. Shadane Baker says, yeah, we should be free. We should be, and that's up to us. It's our responsibility to be free, because freedom is responsibility at the end of the day. For those just tuning in, there was a 7.7 magnitude earthquake that hit just below Cuba, near Jamaica, and is affecting the Cayman Islands, and buildings in Miami were seen shaking. But Oh, I see one person writing in all capitals here. King Football says Turkey, Istanbul earthquake. So I'll look into that right now. I do want to note, though, that the tsunami risk around Cuba has been downgraded. So that is at least good news regarding the safety of people along the coastlines. Let me see here. I'm seeing, when I type in earthquake, I'm not seeing anything out of Istanbul. Let me type in Istanbul. You don't want a massive earthquake hitting in Istanbul. I was just there. It's a massive city. Incredibly it's incredibly crowded. We are getting stuff from one day ago talking about how Turkey's seriously preparing for possible Istanbul earthquake, but I'm not seeing anything breaking regarding that. But anyway, let's see here. Oh, sweet. We got more super chats. All right. So we got a $4.99 super chat from Riashanil S that says, keep it up. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That makes a great difference for us. So we really appreciate those super chats. They're really, really important to the prolonging of independent media and free information online. Without it, we cannot survive. Without it, we cannot deliver news. And without it, we cannot break the propaganda, brainwashing complex that we would call the mainstream media and the government-sponsored mainstream media, I should add. So thank you so much. Bob Lazar says freedom not to have vaccines. Daryl Nugent sent €3 in the super chat as well. Well, thank you very much, Daryl. That's awesome. Again, those go a long way. I can't tell you how important it really is. We got a lot of comments coming. Rothy says coronavirus is already in most of us. I don't know about that. But there's many different kinds of coronavirus, and it was pretty concerning to see the amount of people coughing recently in Vegas at this Chinese New Year event, where there's literally thousands of Chinese people from China itself walking around in Vegas, one of the biggest tourist attractions in the world. It was a little bit concerning last night. I was holding my breath, and all these people were coughing everywhere. And I'm like, oh my God, this is a terrible idea to come here. But anyway, for those just tuning in, there was a massive 7.7 earthquake. Some people are putting it as 7.9, but from what I see, it's 7.7 that hit below Cuba near Jamaica, that has affected the Cayman Islands. Buildings were shaking in Miami, and there was a lot of evidence that there would be a tsunami, but the tsunami risk has been retracted, luckily. But there is little news coming out of Cuba as far as casualties and destruction of buildings, and you have to expect that there was some damage. I mean, come on, it was causing buildings to shake in Miami. Surely there'd be some, it was below Cuba, surely there would be some damage in Cuba itself. So we're trying to get information on that. We're not getting much because obviously the rural communities in Cuba are not great for the spread of news online. It's I would consider it third world in most of the rural communities. I'm trying to update this here. Let's see. Casualties. Let's see if anything comes up here. There's no immediate reports of casualties, but that was 2 hours ago. The information is absolutely terrible right now coming out of these places. If we have anybody watching somehow out of Cuba, we want to know and we want to hear what you have to say. What's weird is this. Look at this. Breaking. 7.7 magnitude earthquake hits between Cuba and Jamaica, affecting parts of South Florida. But look at when it said it was added. 21 hours ago. That's kind of weird, isn't it? So they took another article that was written 21 hours ago and updated it with that. Atlanta Journal-Constitution, it says. Is that not super weird? Anyway, we got a article posted 10 minutes ago here on this. It's breaking news. It's not from 21 hours ago. Let's see what this article says here. Once it loads, I will get right on that. And while we're waiting, make sure to press like on this video if you haven't already. Eric Harmon says probably came through a server on the other part of the world, time zones. Yeah, possibly. It was from Atlanta. It's in Atlanta, the Atlanta Journal, so that's weird. Anyway, Atlanta means by water. So that's your fun fact for today. Anyway, so as this article says, magnitude 7.7 earthquake strikes off the coast of Jamaica. Virginia Tech sensors detected seismic waves, and a powerful magnitude 7.7 earthquake struck in the Caribbean Sea between Jamaica and eastern Cuba on Tuesday, shaking a vast area from Mexico to Florida and beyond, but there were no immediate reports of casualties or heavy damage. The quake was centered 139 kilometers, 86 miles northwest of Montego Bay, Jamaica, and 140 kilometers, 87 miles west-southwest of Niquero, Cuba, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. It hit at 2:10 p.m., 1910 GMT, and the epicenter was a relatively shallow 10 kilometers, 6 miles beneath the surface, and it was a side-to-side earthquake, so it didn't actually turn into the tsunami that was originally expected when we went live, which was retracted as we were live. The quake could be felt strongly in Santiago, the largest city in eastern Cuba, said Belkis Guerrero, who works in a Catholic cultural center in the center of Santiago. And I quote, "We were all sitting and we felt the chairs move," she said. "We heard the noise of everything moving around." She said there was no apparent damage in the heart of the colonial city. And I quote, "It felt very strong, but it doesn't look like anything happened," she told the Associated Press. It was also felt a little further east at the U.S. naval base at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, on the southeastern coast of the island. There were no immediate reports of injuries or damages, said Jay Overton, a spokesman for the installation, which has a total population of 6,000 people. Several South Florida buildings were being evacuated as a precaution, according to City of Miami and Miami-Dade County officials. No injuries or road closures have been reported. The quake also hit the Cayman Islands, leaving cracked roads and what appeared to be sewage spilling from the cracked mains. There were no immediate reports of death, injuries, or more severe damage, said Kevin Morales, editor-in-chief of the Cayman Compass newspaper. Again, the tsunami risk has been downgraded, luckily. We do have pretty crazy videos coming out of the earthquake. So always interesting videos from swimming pools. Anyway. So lots of news coming out over the last few days. Make sure to press like on this video if you haven't already. We really appreciate all the help we can get, and checking those links below helps a lot. Annette says, let's all support Josh a little. He needs our help. Yeah, I definitely could appreciate or do appreciate anything you guys can do to help keep independent media alive and free information alive online. We got more videos of sinkholes coming out, which are quite interesting. And you could see those in the roads. I mean, those are quite dangerous. We aren't sure about the casualties and actual destruction in the path of destruction in places like Cuba, where you'd expect some damage because of the state of many of the buildings out there. But we aren't getting any proper information on it. Romario Pinnock says, "Hey Josh, you think the tsunami might come?" The tsunami warnings have been retracted. I can't change the title of the video though, guys. So yeah, unfortunately, that's the way it is. So people could come in here, watch 2 seconds, and say fake news. But when we went live, there was a major warning of a tsunami. The tsunami warnings have now been retracted, though, because it was a side-to-side earthquake rather than an actual dip of the crust below, causing the water to retract and then essentially flood over the land. We hope for the best for everyone on the ground there, and we have to start supporting as individuals and stop expecting FEMA and these government agencies that do a terrible job helping people to help people, because they won't. They won't. They'll make things, if anything, worse than if actual charities came out there and helped, rather than the government and FEMA restricting independent charities. Let's see. Bilbo Baggins says they can figure this out by carbon dating, pulling ice cores from the Arctic regions. I'm not sure what your comment. Oh, global warming is a natural phenomenon, he says. It has happened over the past millions of years due to the pole swapping positions, and as a result, temperatures went up. We exacerbated it. Well, Lord Moncton has some pretty interesting insight into that as well. Matt Spence says, "Hey Josh, what's happening?" Well, a 7.7 magnitude earthquake hit just below Cuba, causing it was felt in Cuba, in Jamaica, and in the Bahamas, and even as far as Miami, where buildings were seen to be shaking, according to the Virginia Tech seismic counters. Stormzy Jr. says, "Are people going to die?" I don't know. We don't know what the information is on that yet, because there's literally no information coming out of on it. But we hope for the best and that everything turned out good and that was a false alarm. But there have been just ridiculous amounts of natural catastrophes lately that are concerning a lot of people. And we should be concerned. We shouldn't be scared. We should be concerned, and we should be always preparing. We got more videos coming out here of this pool splashing around. Looks like it's the same pool from earlier from the other angle. Anyway, the tsunami warning has been retracted, so we can rest, we can rest assured that that won't be a major issue. Thank God, because we've seen things like that happen before in Japan in the last 10 years, and it was absolutely tragic. A lot of videos are being shared from Japan from 2011 claiming to be of a tsunami in Jamaica, but it's false. Fake news. Anyway. I appreciate everyone joining us. Make sure to press like on this video and help us get into the algorithm, sharing it. It's just absolutely brutal what we're dealing with here on YouTube. Join us on flote.app, flote.app. I really appreciate the super chats. They mean a great deal to us, and they are the #1 thing keeping us alive and making it possible for us to survive as a media today. So really appreciate everything. We got one person, Gene Strong, saying it was a 5.5. No, it was a 7.7. But there might have been another aftershock or another earthquake close by that was 5.5. But it was a 7.7 magnitude. Eric Harmon says, "Seeing that you are a native Canadian, I would love to see you and John make a video on Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang, highlight their contrasts to the other major news lead Dem candidates." I just try not to get too involved in the the bread and circuses, I guess you could say, of politics. It's absolutely just annoying. It's just over and over again, perpetual paradigm of collectivism, problem, reaction, solution, repeat for eternity. And people always look for the entity that took their freedoms to save their freedoms. And it's not going to take a candidate, unfortunately, or a politician to push this policy forward. It's going to take individuals being free, living by example, and breaking free of the old guard system. Alvin Mangali says, "Hey, good to see you." But anyway, I appreciate everyone joining us again. Luckily, the risk of tsunami was retracted, so that's good. And hopefully, everyone's all right. Let's check in with anyone we might know in that region. We hope that everyone watching is safe, and we got to prepare ourselves for these kinds of things, not out of fear, but out of just simple human, ingenuity of us getting through all these cataclysms throughout time and surviving them time and time again. Let's not allow dependence, which has been a plague on humanity over the last several decades, become the end of us, as we've seen in so many past civilizations. Dependence, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times create strong men in a circle for eternity. And it's never been more true than today. We got Romario Pinox says, Josh, I'm from Jamaica. Well, yeah, just let us know whatever is happening there. Did you feel it? I appreciate any information I could get because the information online is terrible. Erdem Sahin says, thank you for all the information. Thank you very much for joining us. Always good to see people from all over the world joining us. Eric Harmon says, well said. Anyway, and don't worry about the trolls in the comments. It's impossible to avoid. Skullfire says, hey guys, just a little late, but make sure to press like on the video if you haven't already. I really appreciate anything you guys can do to help us out. Wayne Peter says misinformation. That would be false. You're tuning in at the last second, writing a comment, and then disappearing is misinformation. But anyway, Erkan Uga says, hey, from Turkey. Hello to you as well. Where in Turkey are you from? Eric Harmon says, have a great day and thank you for your work. Find the truth and be the change, buddy. Yeah, I appreciate that. We got a lot of people from Turkey tuning in. I do have a bunch of videos coming up from Turkey. We got Endoplasmic Burkulum from Turkey. Good to see you as well. We got lots of videos where I was in Turkey near the Syrian border around Şanlıurfa, Derinkuyu, Huron, Mount Nemrut, and a bunch of other places, Adana, those places in Turkey. Man, we got a lot of people from Turkey tuning in. And from Greece, must be that time of day. And Wayne Peter says, do you seriously believe man does not control the weather? I never said that. I said that man doesn't accidentally control the weather, and it doesn't control all of the weather. Shane Karubi says, the Turks like the truth. God bless them. Yeah, we definitely, I felt a lot of hospitality spending time in Turkey. It was great to see, and obviously there have been massive earthquakes happening in Turkey in recent days around the Şanlıurfa region. So we hope for the best for people out there. Really great region, great infrastructure. Some of the best infrastructure I've seen in any country in the world, actually, in Turkey. Just really, some of the best roads I've ever seen, that's for sure. But anyway, Romario Pinox says, Josh, how you get your hair to fall like that, bro? Combing. Some guy accused me of being a shill online yesterday on Instagram because I comb my hair. He's like, only a rich guy can comb his hair like that. I'm like, or you just use a comb. They're pretty cheap. I mean, imagine that being your excuse. Oh, you're a shill because your hair is combed. It's just so crazy. But anyway, yeah, you can find me on Instagram too at World Alternative Media. Follow us there. Anyway, I appreciate everyone joining us. Press like on the video. Check the Teespring store below. Get some WAM merchandise. It's the only thing helping us other than, donations, GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribestar, Float.app, flote.app. We are on BitChute, though I've been having a hard time publishing on there. I'm doing everything on my own, so it's really hard to get everything up and running. So I can't post on every platform, but I'm doing my best. But anyway, we are on float.app, flote.app, and Forward Step Foundation says no tsunami is happening. Yeah, as we reported, while we were streaming live, they downgraded the threat of tsunami, and so that was retracted by the Tsunami Center, which is great. Can't change the title once I'm already live, so that is what it is. But nonetheless, there is a huge earthquake, and it should be a big red flag that we must be always prepared for the worst and hope for the best. Anyway. I appreciate everyone joining. We will go now. I'm going to ramble on forever if I keep reading every comment. So press like on the video and share the video and find us on all these social media, different sites and Float and everything. Anyway, don't forget Twitter. We're on Twitter. Anyway, we will get back to you with much more soon. Stay tuned. Bookmark our page on Wham so that you can actually see our stuff because we're mostly shadow banned. And help support us any way you can. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdsson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.